The Last of Us is one of the most beloved IPs in the past decade. The first game was received very well, whilst the second game sort of divided the fan base. There have been some rumors about another installation within the series, and in this video I want to go over it if we need The Last of Us Part 3 and what story it could potentially tell. And I want to preface this by saying, of course, spoilers for The Last of Us Part 1 and Part 2, but without further ado, let's get straight into the video. So at the end of The Last of Us Part 2, we see Ellie come back from sparing Abby and she loses everything. Dina left, she took JJ, and all she has is her belongings. She then tries to play the guitar, but since she lost her 2 fingers, she can't, and she loses that connection with Joel. In the end, we see a broken Ellie and is left up for interpretation, like, did she go back to Jackson? Did she go start her own faction? Did she try to find the Fireflies? I have no idea. However, it is assumed that Abby and Lev found the Fireflies and sort of moved on with their lives. You see, their ending are kind of ambiguous, and you don't really have a definitive answer as well, and I think that kind of leaves the fans more with questions rather than answers. You see, at the end of The Last of Us Part 1, there was some ambiguity, but we kind of know where you see Joel and Ellie end up and their story, and had some closure to it, and they kind of allude that, hey, we're going back to Jackson and Liv. Like, yes, it was up for interpretation, but in a way, Naughty Dog concluded in a sense where you feel like these characters have closure. So compared to the first installation of The Last of Us, the fans were fine if there wasn't a sequel, whereas I feel like with Part 2, a sequel is kind of warranted. I feel like there aren't any conclusions to the story, and it leads to more speculation, and it's sort of a cliffhanger, although I know Neil Druckmann does not think so. There are many assumptions we as the fan can make, but overall it feels like it ended more on a question mark rather than ending a story completely. And honestly, I feel like there's just so much more story to tell, not only with these characters but with the entire world as a whole. Honestly, I see this franchise concluding in a few different ways. Number one, I would say that we follow Abby and Lev and see what happens within their journey, passing the baton metaphorically and seeing their entire story come to a conclusion. Moreover, I don't know if this is the story that the entire fan base would be on board with, given that Abby was a very controversial character that divided the fan base. I don't think people will be on board to see her as the protagonist for a whole entire game. However, I do think there's more of a story to tell for her character and her conclusion as well. Like, I don't know what happens after her and Lev found the Fireflies and what happens to the whole entire faction of the Fireflies as well. Number two, I think the most realistic one would be to conclude Ellie's story by coming up with a vaccine, or Ellie dying for the greater cause and seeing her story come back full circle. Honestly, I would rather see this since the entire fandom just wants a conclusion over everything. I love Ellie and I feel like she's a great character, and I was very curious to see where her character ends up after Part 2. Personally, I feel like Part 2 leaves a huge gap that doesn't feel like a conclusion, rather a jumping off point for her character. Maybe we see Ellie start her own faction, or maybe we see her become a leader, or maybe we even see her become the leader of Jackson, possibly even looking for the Fireflies just to kind of pay her debts. I think there are a vast amount of directions to carry her character forward, to give her character a great conclusion and to kind of do justice for her character. And I think the third one is to kind of focus on an entire set of characters completely and go on the other end of the universe. I think the Last of Us universe is very, very big, and we have yet to even scrape the surface of it just through Joel and Ellie's character. So it would be very interesting if we focus on a different group and possibly even them trying to survive in, you know, a different country or maybe a different set of circumstances. I think it's very awesome to maybe see the world through a different lens. Like, what are some of the possibilities we have? Like, what if we play as a Firefly? What if we play as a character in a different continent? What if we play as a brand new faction that we never even heard of? I mean, the possibilities are endless. The only issue with this would be starting something when this iteration is supposed to be concluding something. Otherwise, I think this universe has peak potential for a spin-off video game to expand on this crazy world. I'm gonna kind of put this in the sidebar section, but basically I was thinking maybe we can also see a story where we see a young Joel and Tommy kind of survive after the events that transpired when he lost his daughter Sarah. I mean, it would be a great way to sort of bring Joel back and kind of give these characters their story that we all don't really know much about, and we kind of also get to see Joel and his brother in the dynamic and sort of not breaking any canon and, you know, giving us a story that a lot of fans do want to see. Overall, I am excited about what happens for this franchise, seeing that it is a strong IP, and I think there's a lot of potential. Although I was not a big fan of The Last of Us Part 2, I really do think that there could be a lot of redemption for a third installment for this game. However, I would love to hear your ideas down in the comment section. Let me know what stories you guys would like to see in this universe. Do you guys agree with me, disagree? Please let me know. Other than that, it's been your boy Beast, and I'll see you guys in the next video.